Today is August the 26th, 2016. My name is Tanya Finchum. I'm with Oklahoma State University, and today I am in Keys, Oklahoma, Cimarron County.
Yes.
And this is part of our Cowboy and Everett County project, and I am speaking with Jarrod Stewart. So thank you for having us today.
Well, I'm glad you're here.
And let's say we have Nikki White along with us, and she may chime in with a question or two, or not. Okay, let's start with learning a little bit about you, beginning with when and where you were born.
Well, I was born in Guyman, Oklahoma. I was actually born in the car on the way to Guyman, Oklahoma. My mom apparently cried wolf a couple of times, and so when it was really time, Dad thought she was crying wolf, and it turns out she wasn't. And so I was born about 12 miles this side of Guyman. My dad delivered me, and he was supposed to pick up my grandmother, which was right on the way, right off of the road. And when he went by Grandma's house, he was doing about 140. So he didn't stop and get Grandma. And then they called me a dirty baby. They wouldn't let me in with the other babies because I wasn't born in a clean environment. So that's how life began. And it's been that crazy pretty much ever since.
Were you the first?
I am. I'm the oldest of three. I have two younger sisters, Amanda and Andrea, and they both went to Oklahoma State as well, graduates.
Did your mother make it to the hospital for those two?
She did. Yeah, I think Dad was much more in tune by then. I don't think he had any desire to deliver anymore. So.
And so what year and what?
I was born January of 1971.
So cold weather, winter.
Wintertime.
Winter baby.
Yes. Yeah.
And how much younger are they?
Amanda's 4 years younger than me, and her maiden name was, of course, Stewart, but she's married now, Amanda Ty. And then Andrea is 8 years younger than me, and she's Andrea Swartz now, and they both live in the greater Oklahoma City area.
So you're the only one that stayed in this area?
I'm the only one that stayed here in farm. Amanda is involved in the farm. She owns some land and is involved in the farm, and she is in agricultural field. She's a CED in Caddo County for the Farm Service Agency. My younger sister, she was always I called her the bleeding heart, of the family. She wasn't into the agriculture thing like Amanda and I was. Show animals and all that kind of stuff didn't interest her. And so she was in child development, and she's worked for a nonprofit adoption agency from the time she got out of college to current. So.
Doing good things.
Yeah, you bet. You bet.
So, what did your parents do for a living when they had you?
I'm the fifth generation to farm the land here, and so my dad farmed, still does. My mom's a stay-at-home mom, and kept us all in every activity you can imagine.
4-H FFA?
Yeah, we didn't have FFA here at this particular school, but we were in 4-H and did bird books and the whole. If there was an activity, we were in it, whether we wanted to be or not. And so I didn't understand what they were doing at the time, but I appreciate it more now, I'm sure, than I did then. So.
Fifth generation, so take me back.
My grandparents and great-grandparents, they were initially in the Perry area, and during the land rush, they moved into this area, and they were initially, when they come to the Panhandle around Huff in north of Guyman. And we don't know why, but for some reason they decided to come further west, and the further east you go in the Panhandle, the better it gets, so they went the wrong direction. But anyway, they come on out here, and my grandfather, Johnny, I live in the house he built 6 miles north of Keys. And he was in the petroleum business for several years, run Phillips 66 station and delivery. Then it was mainly bulk delivery stuff. And he sold it, I think sometime maybe in the late 60s, and concentrated more on the farm. And my dad, he was going to be a math major, and he was going to get as far away from this farm as he could when he was a kid. And so that's what he did. He went to school, and he, but when he got away from the farm, he realized how much he loved it, and so he immediately from college come back and began farming with my grandfather. And then I come, same deal. I went to Oklahoma State and with full intentions of coming back here and being involved in the farm. So,
What kind of farm is it?
we mainly grow wheat, dryland wheat and dryland grain sorghum. We do have a little bit of irrigated land in Texas, but we have a farm manager that takes care of that land down there. And so, but everything we farm and manage here in Oklahoma is all non-irrigated.
And that's what you mean by dry land?
That's what I mean by dryland, yes.
Do you do no-till?
More minimum till. We found, we've done some no-till, and we found that the fertility requirements, the anhydrous ammonia is the cheapest source of nitrogen, and you've got to incorporate it with some sort of plow. So our normal practice for the last several years has been to sweep ammonia on with a plow one time a year, and pretty well use chemical control of weeds beyond that. Although we're getting a lot of resistancy, that's becoming a real issue, and so we've had to go back to pulling plows in order to control the weeds. So it's going to take a management tool away from us. It's going to make keeping up with acres harder, because a spray rig can cover so many more acres. One guy, one rig, cover 1,000, 1,500. We've even done as much as 2,000 acres in a day. And you put a guy in a tractor, he's going to get maybe 300 acres a day, or you get a rig on the outside. The best we've ever done. My son's 11. He runs tractor and combine, has the last couple of years. And this spring, I put him in a 500 horsepower tractor pulling a 54-foot sweep. And I dropped him off just before 8 o'clock in the morning. I had a meeting that I was going to be to all day, and so I didn't get back to get him until about 9 o'clock that night. And he's one of those kids, when he gets going, he just goes. And he worked 480 acres in one day, one tractor, but he didn't have to move. It was 5 quarters there together, so there was a little, right at 800 acres there in one field, and he somewhere in that less than 500 but more than 450 range, he had a really good day.
So, 11 years old.
He's 11 years old. Yeah.
I'm hoping the cab's air conditioned.
Oh yeah, I mean it drives itself, and he can text his friends, and it's much different than. That is one of the things that has changed. When my dad was on the farm, cabless tractors, cabless combines. I can remember when I was a kid, we had a Super 92 Massey combine, 12-foot header, and open cab, engine behind you. And I remember harvesting milo. My dad would be out there, with just bundles on him, to the point you couldn't hardly move because he was in freezing weather doing it. And then in the summer, you'd be out there and the flying ants would just be caked on you. You just had to not move, because if you moved, they'd bite you, but if you'd stay still, they wouldn't. And yeah, things are much different. I probably wouldn't be here. I would have found a different profession. Took care of a golf course or something. I don't know, but it wouldn't have been this. But as I got older, of course, the cabs become air conditioned and power steering on the tractors, and things we didn't. I didn't think it ever get better than that. And now the tractors drive themselves, and you can hit a button and they turn around, they raise the plow up, they gear down, they do all that at the push of one button. And so, of course, you got your smartphones and connectivity on the tractor, so you can work or play or whatever. And so it's a lot different environment than it used to be.
Just pack your lunch.
Yeah, just pack your lunch. Yeah. Well, in that day, Jace got lucky, because the man that lives on that farm that sold it to us, he brought him pizza. So so he had it made that day.
He felt sorry for him.
Yeah, I guess so.
But the tractors are so much more expensive now.
They are,
for
yeah.
equipment. I guess they're not really tractors per
Yeah,
se.
everything's gotten, and that's one of the things that's driven the farm size to increase so greatly is the cost of equipment has gone up so much, and it takes a tractor to farm, whether you've got 100 acres or 1,000 acres or 10,000 acres, and so you spread those costs over greater acreage. It's forced large farms.
So you do some milo still?
Yes, yeah.
And
Probably have the best milo crop I've ever had, maybe not only in my life, but in all of my ancestors' life. In the ground right now, the milo is phenomenal, best I've ever seen.
it's pretty. We passed some at the corner of 170 and And
Yeah, it's very, very good.
Is that yours?
No, that's a neighbor's, but it's
looks
beautiful.
pretty.
Milo, yeah, he's a very good farmer, does a good job, and yeah, Milo's beautiful there.
What do you do, sunflowers?
I don't. There's some sunflowers planted in the area, mostly under irrigation, and where I'm non-irrigated here, we don't plant many. We planted some, I'm thinking it was the late 80s, as well as in college at Oklahoma State, and maybe 89 or 90. But we had weed held out, and it held the weed out kind of late, so it was too late to plant milo, and sunflowers will mature faster. So we went into those, because when it held it out, we had big rain, had lots of moisture, so we went in and planted sunflowers. That's the last time I remember having them planted on the farm.
Well, let's back up a little bit.
Okay.
Grade school, where did you go?
I went to grade school here in Keys, Oklahoma, at the Keys School, and I'm a board member at the school there now. So full circle, I guess.
The grades 1 through 12 all in one building?
Pre-K through 12, all in one building.
Was it like that when you were in school?
It wasn't. When I was in school, there was two buildings. There was high school on one side of the football field and grade school on the other. And the grade school, they shut down, and I'm thinking sometime in the late 90s. And everything then went into the high school building.
How many were in your graduating class?
My graduating class, I think there was 13, and we were the largest class in the school. And now we'll graduate 3 to 5, sometimes 7, and we've combined a lot of classes, like pre-K and K are together, and then first and second are together, third and fourth are together, and then in 5th grade they begin a rotation, much like you would in junior high, and so they from there through senior they do a rotation into different teachers
How
and classes.
far away do they come?
Our bus area, Boise City's got the large bus area. When Plainview School in the southern part of the county closed, Boise City has from Kenton, Oklahoma to almost Texhoma, Oklahoma. So the entire width of Cimarron County, or length of Cimarron County, Boise City has that within their school district. We're more in kind of the northeastern corner, and so our bus routes aren't as severe as what theirs are.
Kids don't have to ride an hour.
No, we live 6 miles north of Keys, and my kids are on the bus about 20 minutes in the morning, but they're the last ones on. And in the afternoon, they're on about 45 minutes to an hour, but they're the last ones off. So a lot of times, my office is 2 blocks north of the school. The kids will walk to the office and hope Dad can take them home, or Mom will come pick them up, or so.
Well, we noticed the football field is now a park. When did the school
Quit playing football in I think 82. They didn't have football when I was in high school. When I was in grade school, I can remember watching games there, but I think the 82 school year was the last football game.
So what year would you have graduated from?
I graduated high school in 89 and started Oklahoma State in 89.
What was your favorite subject?
Well, I really enjoyed Dr. Williams's classes. They were farm management classes, and so had a connection to that and saw the usefulness in that. And at that age, you didn't see the usefulness in some of the classes you attended. Like, why do I need to do this? And so that was some of my favorites. Were those farm management classes. I enjoyed some of the ag economic stuff. I had Dr. Ortman in some classes, and he had interesting take on diminishing marginal returns, and all the things that you've got to that you don't think about until you go to Oklahoma State and are taught those kind of things. And so those were my favorite subjects. Was the stuff that really pertained to what I dreamed of doing.
And you were in 4-H?
I was.
So
yeah.
What was your project?
Well, I started out with hogs. I had hogs for the first maybe 3 or 4 years, and at that time lived in town with my mom and dad. My grandma and grandpa lived out on the farm, and I kept the animals out there. And the first year that I showed, I thought the SAG thing was going to be easy, because I had 2 grandpas that lived here close, And so when it come time for the sale, I just had, hog. I didn't win anything, it was just, but I had a good time, and I did win showmanship my very first year, but didn't win any, grand champion, reserve champion, or anything like that. And my two grandpas began to bid against each other for this pig, and he brought more than the grand champion steer. And so, I was in the 4th grade and sold a pig for like $3,000. I thought, man, this is easy. I'm going to get a whole bunch next year. So, that's how I began in 4-H, and then went to showing steers as I got older, and showed steers then through high school. And I had a younger sister that showed steers as well. So
Went to county fairs.
just did the local show, yeah.
Well, the 3,000, did you get to do something with, or did you
Well,
have to turn it
I'm
over?
sure it's gone now. I mean, probably spent it on Hot Wheels.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
So did you work, well, you wouldn't have had a part-time job. It would have been on the farm, I guess,
Yeah.
when you were in high school.
Yeah, sometimes I probably wasn't as much help as I thought I was, but I was out there every day. My grandfather would come get me when I was real little and take me with him every day. And then as I got older, our farm shop was out there, and so I'd go out after school, and Dad was always welding or changing oil in a tractor. He was a guy that stayed busy, and so learned a lot watching them. And I was really good at taking things apart, not so good at putting them back together. So it was good to have him around because he always knew how to put them back together.
Well, how young were you when you drove the tractor for the first time?
I was 9 the first time that they actually turned me loose on one. The section that I live on, we had a 4-wheel drive tractor that pulled a bigger sweep plow, and then we had an old cab tractor, but no air conditioner or anything, and it had 930 Ks, and it pulled a 3.6 sweep plow, 18-foot sweep plow with it. And the big tractor broke down, so they were working on it in the shop, and my dad needed help taking the hood off of this tractor. And so he let me go run the 930 while the hired man come in and helped him take the hood off, because I wasn't big enough to help him take the hood off of this tractor. And so that was the first time I got to actually be in one alone. I pretty much grew up in the floorboard of one, but
Felt pretty proud.
oh yeah. I liked running the big 4-wheel drive, a lot better than I liked running the old 930. But and then when I was 10, I believe, I started running combine. Dad would only let me run it half a day, but I'd go run combine for half the day. And then when I was 11, and then began running it all the time. So
Half a day just because it was too tiring.
well,
for
he
some
just felt
younger-
like that. Yeah, it wouldn't be as fatiguing, and maybe my attention span would stay on the combine for that long. And it tapered off some after that, I guess.
Well, when you weren't working, doing things like that, what would you do for fun?
Well, I've always been into cars. I worked on, this is how smart I was when I was a kid. We had several farm pickups, ranging from a 1961 pickup all the way up to about a maybe 78 or 79 model pickup. And when I was 14, it would have been in about 85 or 86. Dad told me, he said, well, you can have whatever one of the farm pickups you want. Well, you can have one of the farm pickups. Well, my infinite wisdom, I picked the 1961 Chevy, And so I spent a lot of time with it, doing body work and put different engine in it, and just learning the mechanic. I took it to a body shop and got an estimate for them to fix the body work, because it had lots of dents and things in it. My grandpa had bought it new in '61. And so they gave me an estimate. I don't remember what it was, but I thought it was too high. So I brought it back here and decided I was going to learn to do body work myself, and I'd have them paint it, because I didn't have the patience to paint. I knew that. So I come back and worked on it all winter, wore a dang air compressor completely out, took it back to the same body shop to get an estimate. It was like $300 more. Lesson learned. But I still have it. It's not actually here in this garage, but I have it in my garage at the house. And So yeah, that's what I did in my spare time. was
Still
race
drivable?
cars. Oh yeah, yeah. I still, yeah. I had it painted. I ended up having somebody else paint it, but I had it painted, and that's what I drove through most of high school. And when I went to college, then I had a car, and then later traded it for another pickup while I was in college. But I've always kind of been into vehicles and cars ever since I was little. There was a store in Amarillo. We get to go to Amarillo. That was a big deal when I was a kid because that was kind of the first or biggest, closest big city. And there was a store there called Grand Central that sold Hot Wheels for 68 cents a piece. And so when I was a kid, I'd mow yards and I'd do all these things, and then I would take everything I had and go to Grand Central and buy Hot Wheels. I would sort through these like basket full of Hot Wheels to find the ones I wanted. And I had like 3,000 Hot Wheels and I've still got most of them. So yeah, the car thing has always been something I've enjoyed.
Is it about the speed or just about
the
performance of the car? Or what?
It used to be when I was younger more about the speed and just the cool factor. But as I've gotten older and some of the cars that I'm involved with now, it's really more about the performance. When I was a kid, it was fun to go fast in a straight line. It was all about the drag race. And now that's boring. It's much more fun to see what you can do in a circle, break zones, and an actual road course. And so anything I do now is road course related, and it's all just for fun. I don't do any professional racing. I guess maybe in my next life. So.
Now, before we talk about where we are, let's talk about OSU.
Okay.
How did you decide to attend OSU, and when?
Well, I had a nudge. I got a nudge from my dad. When I was in high school, I discovered snow skiing. We only live about 3 hours from Red River, Angel Fire. So did a lot of snow skiing through high school. We'd leave noon on Friday and go up and ski on the weekends and come home Sunday. And so I thought that I wanted to attend college somewhere where I could ski. So I looked at Alamosa State in Colorado and looked at Fort Collins at CSU and really thought that that's where I wanted to go. And I've been to Oklahoma State a few times, but at 4-H events. And so I was a little bit familiar with it, but really hadn't considered it so much for a school. And Dad just kept, he didn't force, but in his wisdom, he had a way of, getting you to kind of go his direction. And so he kept pushing me kind of to go that way and at least look. And so we went down and did a freshman or a senior day and did the tour and talked to some of the people in the ag college. And when I left there, it felt like home, and it felt like I already knew the people, and it didn't feel like the other universities felt. And so I knew when I left there that that's where I had to go if I was going to be successful at completing it. So.
When you say we went, who went?
My mother and dad went with me, and I think maybe even Amanda, my little sister, one of my little sisters went as well. But I know Dad and Mom went. So.
What do you remember about the campus from that particular trip?
Well, I know that one of the students that was in the ag college, Steve, can't remember his last name. Really great guy. He showed us around and talked to us some about the college. He was from a small town as well. I think he was a senior, and that was informative because I kind of got the information from somebody that I could relate to. I remember thinking the campus was overwhelming. Here I was, a kid from Keys with 90 people in the entire school and 300 people in the entire town, and I walk into Stillwater and onto that campus with thousands of people. And so it was overwhelming, but I just felt a level of comfort there just because the people I could tell had the same views and philosophies, and I could tell I was going to fit in there, and I wasn't real sure I would fit in at the other schools that I had looked at.
And you planned to major in ag from the get-go?
Yeah, I did. I knew that my ultimate goal was to be able to come back here and farm, and at the time, and probably even more so today, that that seems like an unachievable goal, and it would be if I hadn't had family involved where I could get started. But I know my first advisor, when I told him that what my long-term plans were to come back here and farm, it wasn't that he discouraged it, but he said that was hard to do, you know, and kind of encouraged me maybe to look at other things, that maybe ag was where I needed to be, but there was lots of job opportunities with the agronomy side of things, because that's really what I thought I wanted to do, was focus on agronomy. And so he encouraged me to at least think long term that might be the place for me to head. And I knew that was not what I was going to do. And so we didn't see eye to eye on that, but he was still a good advisor and still took good care of me. But I knew I had an opportunity here. I just had to seize it, whether he saw it or not. And that was one thing that back to Dad's infinite wisdom, he told me one time, he said, you can do anything you want to do, but you can't farm with me unless you have a degree. And his philosophy there was, and he's right, he saw too many times that kids come back to farm with their families and they hadn't matured and they didn't have that educational background, and it didn't work. And they lost their relationship, and he didn't want that to happen to us. And my dad and I were really, really close. So, that story always gets me.
Well, he didn't attend OSU, but he went.
He actually did attend OSU for, it was either a semester or a year. He graduated from Panhandle State, but he did go to OSU. It may have just been a semester or a year, I'm not sure, but
We'll count him as an alum there.
Yeah.
And his name was
JB, Johnny Burt, yeah.
And that would have been roughly.
Well, he graduated in 64 or 5. So, 66, 67, I would say. He'll be able to tell us, but I'm not positive what year it was that he went down there.
And where did you live when you were there?
Well, I lived the first year in the dorms. I lived in would have been Wilhelm South. Is that right? So what would have been the west one? There were 2 towers. What were they? They were Kerr
Drummond, which is still standing.
Okay, and then the other one, the one they demolished was the one I was in. I think the men were on the south side. So yeah, I was in Wilhelm South.
And then joined.
No, I didn't join anything. I stayed in the dorms the first year, and met some other ag friends. Mark Conradi was from Kansas, and his dad owned John Deere dealerships, and he and I had a lot in common. And he lived on, I think, the 7th floor, and I was on the 8th floor, and we run around a lot together. So we decided we'd rent. We rented a duplex out on 19th Street, out near the fire station there. I don't remember what, I think that's 19th. Anyway, we had a duplex out there, and then Charles Hill was, I always called him a steer jock. He was the guy that went around and trimmed steers and was into the animal science thing. And we had a lot in common, and so the 3 of us had this duplex out there, and stayed there through my sophomore year. And then my junior year, we lived on 6th Street. Right across, there's a school there when you first come into town. About, I don't know, Orchard, I think Orchard Street maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway, we lived right there, and Mark Conradi was roommate again, and then Jason Wolf was a friend of Mark's that had transferred from a school in Kansas to Oklahoma State. And so the 3 of us had the house there, and that was a fun time. We all had a really good time. In fact, they used to say that there was a dentist office across the road from our house, and it looked like the only time it was open was on Friday and Saturday night. Because that's where all of our friends would park. And then senior year, Mark Conradi was roommate again, and then Judd Cryer was from Keys, went to school here, and Zach Shepard was also from Keys. They were younger than me, but they were guys that I'd kind of run around with in high school, and they both come to school down there. So we had a duplex out close to Atwoods, and they were roommates then. So then I graduated and come back here. So.
Did you talk them into, did your being there help get them there?
Well, it didn't hurt. It didn't hurt. You know, I sure think that that it had some influence, because when they come down to visit, the other parents brought them down to visit. Well, then I'd go run around with them and show them the campus, and so yeah, I don't think it hurt to have somebody that you kind of knew and knew the ropes.
Well, what part of ag did you major in?
I have agronomy and ag economics.
I've learned it's not dirt, it's soil. Right?
Exactly, yeah. Dirt is misplaced soil, like this on the floor here, that's dirt. But all that Milo you saw growing, that was growing in soil.
I learned that the hard way. I got corrected on tape, so.
See, my grandma used to say, you could tell she was a real farm lady. She used to say, you bring all the mud in this house you want, just don't bring any dust. So she had it figured out. So, yeah.
Well, how often would you come home?
I come home fairly often. You know, I mean, it is a 5.5 hour drive. It was, if I remember right, it was like 318 miles from Stillwater to Keys, and so I didn't come home every weekend. It wasn't like it was a weekend, you know, pack up and bring laundry home to mom kind of school. I had to learn to, well, I learned to do laundry, but that's another story. But I would come home breaks, fall break, spring break and stuff, help on the farm, because a lot of times fall break we'd be harvesting grain sorghum and planting wheat and that sort of thing, so I always come home then. And I come home more when we were in the field, so a lot of times in September and October I would come home more. And then, of course, in December would be home for Christmas and a break. And then like January, February, March, a lot of times I wouldn't come home as much through there, because there just wasn't as much going on here. And there was always something going on there.
Talk about laundry then.
Okay, laundry. I knew you was going to ask that. Well, why I brought this up. Well, I love my mom dearly, but we didn't always see eye to eye. And so, you know, there were some things that we were supposed to do. And I was always good at getting out of doing dishes. Or, you know, we each had a dish night. Well, I always had something I would trade my sisters out of where they would do dishes for me, because I didn't like to do dishes either. But Mom would want us to put our laundry in the baskets and things, and I wasn't good at doing those kind of things. So we got into some kind of, you know, battle, and so she said, fine, you can just do your own laundry. So, you know, I did. And it had something to do with me carrying out the trash too. I think I was supposed to carry out the trash and she was going to do laundry, and I didn't want to carry out the trash, and I got to do laundry. But I saved lots of people, because when I got to Oklahoma State the first year and was in the dorms, I think I was the only guy out of like 60 on that floor that knew how to do laundry. So we had a little laundry lesson, you know, everybody come down and watch me do laundry. That way they all knew how to do it too. So yeah, I did laundry pretty much my whole senior year of high school. But,
did you tell your mother that you gave lessons?
Well, yeah, she did. Yeah, she was aware that happened. Yeah.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah, she did. I guess everything happens for a reason. So.
Well, what would some of the things you'd do for fun while you were on campus?
I enjoyed, I enjoyed eating at the cafeteria, because the camaraderie there. You'd see your friends, and you know, everybody go eat, or we'd the dairy bar. I don't even know if it's still there, but you know, the dairy bar. We'd all go hang out at the dairy bar, walk through there and get coffee of a morning, and you know, hanging out in front of Ag Hall. That was always, you know, that was always fun. Everybody get together out there and you know, visit and talk about what we were going to do, if we were going home, or if we were what we was going to do that weekend. I really enjoyed Lake Carl Blackwell. My senior year, I had an old boat, and so we spent a lot of time at Carl Blackwell, and we'd ski, and so that was a real fun pastime.
Well, the opposite end of that is, did you spend any time in the library?
Yeah, let me think. Yes, and I can tell you the time I spent in there the most. I had I don't remember whether it was a speech class or a writing class, but it was one or the other. And we were supposed to pick a character that we thought that the rest of the class didn't know anything about, or didn't know much about, or didn't really know who was, and write about that character and then present it to the class. So I think maybe it was a speech class. And so anyway, I picked Pistol Pete. So I studied Frank Eaton, and I spent a lot of time in the library, and did a lot of studying about him and where his house was, and you know how he become the iconic Pistol Pete, or how the iconic Pistol Pete was after him, I guess is how I should put that. But I spent a lot of time in the library during that project. So
Today.
I don't remember. I should have, right? I should have.
Would you have any classes you struggled with?
Did, yeah. I had classes I struggled with, and you know, one class that I struggled with a lot, and math was always kind of my strong point. It was what I enjoyed the most, was the math side of things. And, I took Ag Statistical Price Analysis, Dr. Kuntz, and oh my God, it was, I didn't understand it. I didn't get it at all. But I was at class every day. Some days maybe I even shouldn't have been. I was at class, and I didn't pass the class in terms of numbers. It was the only class that I failed while I was there. But in terms of numbers, I did not pass. But after the finals and stuff, I don't remember whether I went in to visit with him or whether he called me in to visit with him. But he told me he was going to pass me because I was at class every day, and he knew that I did the best I could do. That it just wasn't my subject, and so he passed me. Yeah, exactly. And so I did struggle with that class, and I also struggled a little bit with accounting. You know, in the math side of things, like I said, it was my strong point, and that's what I enjoyed. But I had never been presented it in terms of debits and credits, and so I struggled some with accounting. And Dr. Lacey, Bud Lacey, was my accounting teacher, and he was really good, and he took extra time and made sure that I kind of understood what I was doing, and so I ended up doing pretty well in the class before it was said and done, because I got it. You know, I was able to kind of pick up what the checks and balances were, and so.
A favorite class, professor?
You know, I had several that I really liked. Let's see, there was a Dr. Edwards that was in genetics, and I really liked the genetics classes. That was on the animal science side, if I remember right. Let's see, Dr. Carter was my soils class, and we did a tour through parts of Oklahoma and would study soil structure and take the OSU van out, and so I really enjoyed that class. And I really enjoyed Dr. Carter. He opened my eyes to soil structure and how important that was, and how hard it was to bring back once you've damaged it, if you know, farm too wet, and those kind of things, compaction issues and stuff, how it can take hundreds of years to correct problems, and so I really enjoyed that class. And as I mentioned earlier, Dr. Williams, Joe Williams, was fantastic. You know, had a great time in the 2 or 3 classes of his that I took, and probably the funnest class that I took was the feedlot class. I don't remember exactly what it was called, but everybody called it the feedlot class. There was 3 professors in there. Not sure I can remember their name. They were obviously, I think, one animal science guy and then one ag economics guy. But you had buyers and sellers of cattle set up, and so you were on a team with like 3 or 4 other people, and they had a timer. And so and when the timer went off, if you hadn't sold your cattle, then they moved to a heavier weight pen, and so it become feeding cattle in a little short window, and it was a game, and it caused you to have a lot of interaction with everybody else in the class, because maybe the other team you were dealing with was the feedlot, and you were the buyer, and then the next week it would switch, and that class was a lot of fun. It wasn't a textbook study and have tests and those kind of things, but it was just phenomenally fun. It was that class that you couldn't wait for the next week so you could.
Would that be in your senior year or earlier?
It was probably either junior or senior.
Toward the end.
Yeah, it was towards the end. Yeah.
Did you do anything with the Magruder plots?
You know, I didn't. I had some classmates that did some of the worked out at the agronomy farm, and had more to do with them. Now, of course, some of my class time was spent out there in some of the plant and even some of the soil classes. We would spend some time out there, but I didn't have anything directly to do with them.
Well, it sounds like some of the things you learned you actually apply today.
I do.
Or it comes in handy.
Absolutely, yeah, you bet. Farming's become more and more about numbers. It's always been about numbers to a certain extent, but the margins and the number of dollars that you deal with, both in expenses and income and marketing and all of those kind of things, it all ties back to some of the things that we studied in school.
Do you keep your numbers in your head or on a computer or
Yeah,
what?
both. I can't remember what I did yesterday, but when it comes to numbers and things of that nature, I have a pretty good memory of that kind of stuff. And I keep spreadsheets and accounting programs. And of course, with smartphones, things have gotten even easier to keep track of. I use an app on my phone that has all of our fields in it and keeps track of rainfall, and it sends you like aerial pictures of the crop that tells you if you have stress points and those kind of things in it. So technology is going to really, it's obviously changed farming in the way that it's been, and it's a snowball effect. The more technology there is, the faster it grows. So we haven't seen anything yet, is my philosophy on what's coming in farming. We think the tractors that drive themselves are advanced. Well, that's the beginning, not the end. The day will come that we won't have anybody in them. And I think I know it could be done now, but for liability reasons, it's not. Turn 500 horsepower tractor loose, and farmers are notorious for wiring around something when it's not working like it's supposed to. And so yeah, they're not going to let us turn them loose until they figure out how to keep us from wiring around it, I guess.
And I understand you're in the insurance business, so you would know that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm in the insurance business. When I come back from college, I was farming 600 acres roughly, and not enough to make a living. And I had been doing appraisal work for an insurance company while I was in Stillwater. So I had roommates and friends that had jobs, and every day when they get out of class, they had a class schedule to juggle and they had a job schedule to juggle. Well, I figured out I could go work for this insurance company. They'd pay me mileage on my pickup. They'd pay me to stay in a hotel room. They'd pay my meals while I was out. And I could go work 3 days. I could go leave on Friday when class got out and work Friday evening and Saturday and Sunday and come home and make more than what they were. And I wasn't having to do any juggling. And it was a lot more fun. And so I did that part of my junior year and most of my senior year. And so when I got out of school, the insurance company that I was working for sent me to cotton school in Lubbock and the soybean school and corn school in Nebraska, and because I had an agronomy degree and was doing appraisal work, which was a school teacher job in the past, because in the summers you did appraisal work for the insurance companies and winters you taught school. So they weren't used to having somebody that had the ag background that I had, and so they spent a lot of money training me. Well, I worked the first year out of college. I worked all summer doing appraisal work and farming, but most of my time was spent doing appraisal work. And towards the end of that summer, we had a neighbor that come around and said he was going to quit farming and that he would suggest to his landlords to rent me the land if I wanted it. So I had this opportunity to go from farming 600 acres to farming like 3,000. Well, then I wasn't going to be able to do appraisal work and keep up with that. So I basically called the insurance company and said, "Where are you going to be sending claims? I'm done." And so about 3 days later, my claims supervisor and some guy I didn't know just knocked on my door. And I looked out the window and heard my claims supervisor and some guy I didn't know. It turned out to be a VP of this insurance company. And so they come in and gave me this spiel about how they didn't want to lose the knowledge and all the investment and time and stuff they'd put in me, and wanted to know if I'd look at being an agent, that they knew they couldn't continue to have me traveling, but that they thought that maybe I could sell insurance and use my knowledge that way. And so I accepted to do that and started selling insurance in the fall of '93 for the 94 wheat crop, and we were planting the 94 wheat crop, and so that's how I got started in the insurance business. Was handling it out of we were renting a house from the bank here in town, and I was recently married, and we were running it out of a bedroom in the house, and had like 12 or 13 policies, you know. And then in '95, the government passed that deal to where the Farm Service Agency wasn't going to sell crop insurance anymore, because up till then they can handle it too, and it was all going to go private. So we decided at that point it was time to either get in the business or get out of the business. It was print business cards and do it, or quit doing it at all. And so we chose to get in it, and at that time we had moved to the farm, and I remodeled the garage into an office and handled the insurance out of the garage in my office from '94 or '5 till like '98, and in '98 moved the business into town, and have been here since.
About 20 years.
Been at it a long time.
Did you discuss that with your father before you made the decision?
You know,
to
I
go for
did.
it?
Yeah, that is something we discussed. Yeah, it was something we discussed. It made sense because I had the farm knowledge. I knew how to speak the language, so to speak, and then I had the claims knowledge, and that's really what insurance is about: is how well you handle claims. And so it was easy for me. It just fell naturally.
Kind of diversified your.
It did. Well, that was one thing I noticed growing up, and in the traveling that I'd done. The farms that were really successful, the guys that you could tell were really doing well at it, they were the ones that didn't just farm. They had something else that was covering family living expense, or they had something else that they had invested time and money in that was generating them outside income outside the farm. And so in those years when the farm didn't do well, you wasn't having to pull living expenses out of that as well and continue to deteriorate it. And so I'd noticed that growing up, and that was one of the things that I thought all along. When I come back to farm, I wanted to find something else that would help supplement that. And if you find something, the key to life is to find a vocation that you don't need a vacation from. And so that was what I tried to do. I tried to find something that when I got up every morning to go to work, I was excited about going. And I think that's the secret to success.
Yeah, I would agree. You mentioned your wife. Did you meet her at OSU?
Yeah, first wife. Yeah, I did. I was married to Carrie Ferguson. She graduated Oklahoma State, ag economics degree, I believe. And we were married for 6 or 7 years, and then got divorced. And she's actually works for the Farm Service Agency as a CED downstate. And then I married a local girl in 2003. And we have 3 kids. I have Jet, the wild child is 4, and then I have the princess Jordan is 8, and then my hard-working son, the one that did the tractor driving and runs combine and all that, is Jace, and he's 11.
All J's.
All J's, yeah. All J's. And my wife Lori grew up in this area. Her family ranched and was from Boise City, and so she had come back. She was actually a dental assistant in Amarillo, and she'd come back home, and anyway we started dating and ended up getting married in 2003. And we live on my grandpa built the house that we live in 1958.
Well, when did electricity come to the?
I don't know. It has electricity and running water.
Did it when you were
Yes,
little tot?
near as I can remember. Yeah, I mean, I think it did.
So probably in the 40s.
Yeah, but I'm going to say probably 40s. When I was 14. My mom and dad, we lived in a small house here in Keys, and my mom and dad had looked at moving to the farm. My grandfather had died, my grandma still lived at the farm, and so my parents looked at moving to the farm, and grandma was maybe going to move to town. And well, then they started talking about remodeling the house and doing some things, and grandma wasn't real sure about that, so that kind of all fell through. Well, then it wasn't long after that, there was a guy that worked for a gas company here in town that had built a new home and got transferred, and so they were trying to sell this home that was only like two or 3 years old. So mom and dad were buying it, and on November 1st they signed the contract for that house. November 6th, my grandmother was killed in a car wreck. And so when all the dust settled and everything was over, the people that owned the house were going to let mom and dad out of the contract, and we talked about moving to the farm. So they left it up to us kids. So me and my 2 younger sisters got to vote on whether we were going to stay in town and buy this house, or whether we were going to move to the farm and remodel that one. Well, I wanted to move to the farm. I mean, it was, I didn't even have to think about it. Well, my 2 little sisters wanted to live in town, so I got outvoted. That wasn't the first time nor the last time that I got outvoted. In fact, every time I got outvoted. but little did I know it was a favor, because I lived in this house in town for like 5 or 6 years after that, and then went to Oklahoma State. And then when I come back, I had the farm, and I can live there the rest of my life if I want to. So it really worked out in the long run.
Well, describe that house.
It's basement, it's got a full basement, and it's brick home. It was built in 1958. They had a really good wheat crop. The winter of '57 was a historic event. There's pictures of like kids on top of the houses, you could just walk on top of the houses. They had this giant blizzard, I think it was in March of '57, and it's still talked about today. If you go to the coffee shop sometime, and if you're there 2 or 3 days, you're going to hear about the blizzard of '57 again. So they had a monster wheat crop because of all the snow, and my grandpa built that house with that wheat crop. And so when my grandmother died and we cleaned the house out, we found some farm accounting things that my grandpa had written down on a ledger sheet. And I don't remember what year it was, but it was sometime in the 50s. And it had 6 or 8 entries on it, like seed is $60, and then it was like fuel, $18. And, his entire farm expenses for the year was like $680. It's 6 items. It has changed. It doesn't work that way anymore. So, he could in 5 minutes write down every expense he had on the entire farm and have a record of it, and now it takes a full-time accountant to keep up with it. So. And
he grew wheat too, or
he mainly grew mainly wheat.
And so
they didn't grow much grain sorghum until the 80s.
So he'd bring it into the elevators here.
Bring it into the elevators here. Yeah, there were 2 elevators here in Keys, and they'd bring grain into the elevator and bobtail trucks like 300 bushel at a time. And when I was a kid, we'd run 2 combines. We had Gleaner L combines, like late 70 model combines. I'd run one, Dad run one, and then Grandpa and Mom would run the trucks. And so, they'll stick shift, windows down, and haul 300 bushel. And we had 3 trucks, so they just sat there all day and turn trucks. And Dad and I'd pull out of the edge of the field and dump in the truck, and then when it got full, they'd bring it to town. And it works much different now. I run this summer cutting wheat. I run 6 combines, and we run stripper heads. Makes harvest a lot more efficient. You don't run all the material through the machine. It just strips the grain and leaves the straw standing. So if the wheat's this tall when you start cutting it, it's this tall when you're finished. It just pulls the grain out of it. And we run 6 semis and 2 grain carts, and I had about 20 people working, and so yeah, things have changed.
Well, did you do wheat harvest when you were younger? Go on wheat?
On the wheat? Yeah, I'd run a combine, and then You know, we used to play in the grain trucks. You know, big deal to get in the grain trucks and play, which you're not supposed to do. But you know, somehow all of us survived that.
Was there a local swimming hole? Do you have a local swimming hole?
You know, this town used to be the helium capital of the world. And so we had this giant helium plant just outside of town. And so our property taxes in the school got back in the 60s and 70s got a lot of money because of that helium plant. And so we have an Olympic size indoor swimming pool at the school. So the local swimming hole was
At the high school.
was the high school, yeah. It was at the swimming pool.
And you could go year round? I mean, if school wasn't in session?
No, let me think. I forget when they quit keeping it open year round. I think I was in high school but for a while, yeah, we could go year round. And now that's just open in the summer. In fact, they drained it, I think, just the other day. They flood the streets, you know, when they drain it, and the street was flooded just the other day.
Well, you wouldn't get sunburned then, but when you were doing the tractor business and all that, did you all worry about?
You know, I always wore a hat, and so it just, I think now maybe we're more aware of those things than we were then. But no, I really didn't worry about any of that then.
And the cabs weren't air conditioned or?
No, by the time I was up old enough to run, most of them were. The first tractor I ever drove wasn't, and it was cabbed, but it wasn't air conditioned. But it was a short-term deal, you know. If I'd had to do that very long, I'd probably done something else. But most of the years that I drove tractor when I was young, they were cabbed and air conditioned, and you know, had AM/FM radio in them. CB, you could, you know, talk to Dad on the CB sometimes. They weren't the most reliable thing in the world.
And were you good at making straight lines?
Depends on who you ask. Yes. No. It you know, back to that attention span thing. Well, when you sit there and you physically have to drive the tractor and keep it, you know, yeah, no, it was. I was good enough. I didn't get fired.
I was gonna say, Dad didn't say, "Okay, son, you got to redo
well,
that."
Yeah, no, I've heard that. No, I've had to redo some things. I got better at it after I worked a field and missed several spots. You know, left several skips, so the weeds were still growing in spots this wide, this long. You know, and he many times told me, "You got to clean that up. You know, you got to pay attention." Blah blah. Well, then one time he gave me a hoe and told me to get all the weeds that I'd missed. You know, to go clean up the hoe. I didn't miss near as many after that. I got a lot better at driving straight.
Had a way of life lessons, huh?
Yeah. They.
Well, how young were you when you had your first bank account? I'm assuming you were getting.
I was young. When I borrowed money at a really young age because my dad fed cattle, and so I started feeding cattle in probably 84 or 5. I was still in high school, or maybe, I think, yeah, I'd have been in high school. And I can remember going in and borrowing money for feed, you know, to pay feed bills and stuff on these cattle. And I got lucky because the years that I was in the cattle market, and really the animal side of things was never my thing. In fact, I told Dad if we was going to continue to run cattle, I wasn't coming back. I liked I was plowboy, not a cowboy, so to speak. And but I got lucky because the years that I had cattle in the feedlot, they did very well. Money-wise, they made quite a bit of money. Well, in '89, when I was a senior, it might have actually been the summer of '89, between my senior year in high school and freshman year at OSU, my dad he farmed 2 quarters, and well, he actually farmed 3 for this family, and when the parents died and the 2 siblings inherited it, the sister immediately wanted to sell. So Dad bought a quarter and an 80, and then he farmed the other quarter and 80 for the brother. And he farmed it that way for several years. Well, when I was there in '89, the brother decided he wanted to sell his. So my dad gave me the 80 that was in with the brothers. So he gave me 80, and I was able then to borrow enough money. I sold out of the cattle, got completely out of the cattle business, and bought the other 240, borrowed money to buy the other 240.
And you were still in high school.
I think I was between I don't remember whether it was in the spring of '89 or the summer of '89, but I would have either been in high school or have just graduated. So I bought 320 acres, and I can remember thinking, it was $90,000, $90-some thousand dollars is what I borrowed, and I can remember thinking, I will never make $90,000. How am I ever going to pay for that? But I walked off the ledge anyway. So
A 30-year loan?
I don't remember then what it was. It was a deal I did here at the local bank, and I still today bank across the street at the High Plains Bank of Keys. It used to be the First State Bank of Keys, but I've banked there all my life.
Well, how did you pay for college? Or did your parents do that?
My parents helped me with college. Dad paid he got to where he didn't pay the extracurricular activities, but he paid for school. For a while he would send me money, and then he figured out what I was doing with it. He quit sending me money. When he had to call George's Stables to find me, that's when he quit sending me money. No, it wasn't. Well, yeah, it was that bad. But yeah, they helped me with college, and I had, I sold the hog for $3,000 when I was in the 4th grade.
Yeah, that's right.
And of course, they made me put those money that I had made when I was showing cattle and through 4-H and that sort of stuff. They made me put it back, and so I had lots of help.
You had college fund covered for the
Yeah,
most part.
I had a part of it covered. So,
And you graduated from OSU in 93?
93, yeah, May of 93.
Do you remember graduation day?
I do. President Bush spoke. And I remember that day well because they shut down a lot of the roads and stuff. And I was leaving to come home. They still had some of the stuff shut down, and you had to get around. And so.
Did your parents come?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did.
So it would have been if Bush was there, it was probably in the arena then
what?
instead of the stadium?
Yeah, it was. I'm not too sure, though, the year that Bush spoke wasn't the year before I graduated. I didn't go, I don't think I went through the big graduation. I think I just went through the College of Ag graduation. And I actually think that it was, because I wouldn't have been, I remember leaving the day that President Bush spoke. I remember leaving Stillwater and having to go around all the roadblocks and all of those things. And I know the year I graduated, I didn't leave the same day we graduated because we packed and moved all our stuff home and stuff. So I think I have those 2 years confused. I think Bush was the year before I graduated, but I didn't go through. I don't think I went through the big graduation. I think I just went through the College of Ag graduation. Yeah, that's a little fuzzy. Yeah.
Well, were you in Alpha-Gamma Row or a farmhouse?
I wasn't. I had several friends that were, run around with some guys that were in both of those fraternities, and always got along well with the guys, but just it wasn't for me.
You were a GDI.
I was a GDI. Yeah, had the sticker and everything. So, that's correct.
Were you involved with anything on campus, like murals
the agronomy club? I did a lot of stuff with the agronomy club. We used to do a steak cookout every year, kind of towards the end of the year, and the feedlot that my dad was involved in would give us steaks, and we'd marinate the steaks the day before, and so that was kind of a big deal. It was always fun to do. Sure. I didn't play any of the intramural stuff. I had some friends that would go play basketball and hang out in the weight room a little bit, but I was more into, if the weather was good, we went to the lake, that sort of thing.
Spend much time in the student union?
I didn't spend a lot of time in the student union. Trying to think. Would walk by there all the time getting to, I think it was the accounting classes. Had to walk.
I just wondered if the bowling alley was in it during your years.
I think the bowling alley wasn't. I didn't bowl there, but I think the bowling alley was in it. Okay. I did. It seems like.
And did you go to sporting events, basketball,
football
games?
Yeah. We went to mainly the football games. I wish now I'd have gone to more basketball games, because I really enjoy the basketball games more than I do the football games. But back then, the football was what everybody did. All the students did, and so went to a lot of football games. I can remember. Oh, was it? What was our coach, Pat? Was it Jones?
Yeah.
Pat Jones? Is that right? Pat something?
Yes.
I don't know.
I can remember watching a football game. I don't remember what year it was, but the stadium was still just concrete steps. So you just sat on concrete. There wasn't chairs on the north side of the stadium. And that was the student section. But I remember sitting over there, and a lot of times, like, we would just go to halftime, and then at halftime we'd go do something else. Yeah. And yeah, exactly. Yeah, we go to George's. And but I can remember we were playing Nebraska, and it was when Nebraska was a powerhouse, and of course we weren't. And we were at halftime. We were beating Nebraska like 14-3. And I remember them interviewing Pat. I want to say it's Pat Jones. Pat. Can't think. Anyways,
It's not coming
yeah, the coach. They interviewed the coach, and the lady or the guy interviewing him asked him, what do you think the outcome of the second half of this game will be? And he said, we're going to beat Nebraska 14-3. And I just covered my eyes. It was like, there is no way you're going to hold them to scoreless in the second half. And they ended up beating us like 54-14. It was a bloodbath the second half. So yeah, I remember some of the sporting events. Not all of those memories were good, but I do remember them. They're much more fun to go to now.
Do you have season tickets?
I do.
Now? You do?
Yeah.
To football or?
Yeah, football. Yeah. My dad has 6, and I have 2. I think that's how it is. We have 4 seats on the south side with my sister's husband's family. And so my sister and her husband and some of us will sit there. And then my sister Amanda was hurt in a car wreck when she was 14, and she's in a wheelchair, and she sits over in the handicap seating on the south side. And so Dad has some seats over there by the handicap side so that they can sit together. So
you all meet and have
we
big
all
family
meet,
time.
tailgate, the whole works. Yeah. I don't get to go to as many games as I'd like to, but other people appreciate that because they get my tickets. So, yeah, now my dad doesn't miss a game. Literally doesn't miss a game. Hasn't, I don't know how long. He did miss a game. I don't know whether it was last season or the season before, but it was a deal that he was president of the National Grain Sorghum Association, and he had a meeting in Washington that he just flat could not miss. It was when they was working on the farm bill, so it may have been 2 years ago. But so he missed a game due to that. But I can't tell you the time he'd missed before that. I have no idea. It's been a long time.
What did he start being such a fan because you were there?
It was because when we were in school there. Yeah.
Just before that he wasn't?
Well, I guess after you put 3 kids through OSU, you feel like you kind of got tied to it.
Yes.
Yeah, he tells me that every time he drives to campus, he looks for the parking spot with his name, but he hadn't found it yet. So.
Well, he must be pretty far up the chain if he got to go to D.C. to work on the farm bill.
Yeah, he's been involved with the grain sorghum producers for a number of years, and has been active with that organization. And was vice president, and then was president, and now he does some legislative events and things with them when they go.
Represents Oklahoma well.
Yeah, he's a good voice of agriculture. He told me that agriculture in Oklahoma had been good to him, and now he's trying to give back. He's trying to do things that like with the farm bill, and when they were negotiating all that, he was actively involved with Frank Lucas and then the sorghum growers, and he was on some committees and spoke on behalf of farms, and he's fun to watch when he does that. He puts the suit and tie on and the whole works. So that's not the way I remember Dad.
Has some of that rubbed off on you?
It has. I understand why he does it. And, when you farm to the extent that we do and have other businesses and things that you take care of, it's hard to find time to do those kind of things. But I know that's important, and it's not just important for us, it's important for other people and the voice and future of ag. And so yeah, he's instilled that in me as well. And I'm on the OCI board, the Oklahoma Crop Improvement Board, and so we had a meeting in Stillwater last month, and meet out at where they clean seaweed stuff there west of town.
Okay. So you visit campus?
Yeah, I still come to campus. Yeah.
Regular?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I probably make it to Stillwater, 7 or 8 times a year. And I'm involved in some other businesses. I actually own part of a pawn shop in Stillwater. And so I have a good friend, lifelong friend, Brian Johnson, that lives just outside of Stillwater, south of Stillwater. His wife works for the food, can't think of the name of it, where they do testing for new products, new food products and stuff. Like if you come up with a barbecue sauce and you want to try to market your barbecue sauce, they'll help you through labeling and all those kind of things. His wife's worked there on campus for several years. And anyway, he and I own a pawn shop together, Cowboy Gun and Gold. And so that's one thing that I don't do, anything day to day with it, just kind of more of a silent partner. It's just something I thought would be fun, and it's something I knew would be good at and is good at. And so, and then another one of them times Dad looked at me like I'd lost my mind, but it's been 11 years ago. In May it was 11 years. My wife's family, my wife's from Boise City, so we were in Boise City for Thanksgiving, and she had some of her relatives from downstate was here. Well, they decided they wanted to mix margaritas or make drinks of some sort. So we go down to the local rundown, terrible shaped liquor store, and there's been a for sale sign hanging in it for years. And so we go in there to get margarita mix, and this family member said, "Oh, so you're trying to sell the place?" And the lady running it said, "Yeah, I'm trying to sell it." And he said, "Well, what do you want for it?" So she said, and we're thinking, "Man, really?" So I leave there thinking, "Man, I ought to buy that." And so the next morning, I live out there at the farm, and at that time that was still headquarters of the farm. We've since moved to the headquarters, but so Dad gets out there that next morning, and I told Dad, I said, "I think I'm going to buy the liquor store." And he said, "You're going to do what? Why would you want to do that?" And I said, "Well, this is what she wants for it." And he goes, "Well, dang, you're going to buy it, aren't you?" So I went and bought the liquor store the next day. So I own the only liquor store in Cimarron County.
Is it not a dry county?
It's not.
It's not.
It's not a dry county. No. It's not.
So,
I don't drink, but very little. But I'm not a very good customer. But and it's not been a business that's been real lucrative or made lots of money. But it did create 2 part-time jobs, and it kept a business open in the county. We went in and gutted the building, and laid hardwood floors and put in new shelving and put in a point-of-sale system. And because this is one of the most interesting things when I bought it, the only thing they wanted to keep out of there, the only thing they carried out the door with them, was the old cash register. And it was one of those that you push the button and it stayed down, for the dollar figure, and then you push the button for the 10 cent, and then and and the tape on it had run out, and they couldn't get them anymore. So she would spray it with WD-40 and then hit the thing so that it would print on a piece of paper. And they wanted to keep the cash register, which was fine because I wasn't using it. But we redid everything else and put in a point of sale system, security system, all those kind of things, and kind of brought it up to date. And but I have a manager that runs it.
And what's the name of it?
The House of Cheers.
We saw it.
Yeah, they're on Main Street. Yeah, been there forever. It used to be, I don't remember what they called it, but that was in May, or that wasn't in May. It was in, we took over in May. It was Thanksgiving when we bought it, but it takes a long time to get your liquor license. Mm-hmm. And so it was May when we actually turned the name and started selling liquor under our license.
It's probably a good time to talk about the cars then, since you were
discussing
that. So how did you get involved? Tell us where we are first.
We're at the old grocery store in Keys, Oklahoma. This used to be Marvin D's Grocery. So growing up, from the time that I we'd come into the grocery store with my mother clear up to when we was in high school, and we had open campus, and it's just 3 blocks to the school. So we'd all walk up here and they had a slushy machine, and of course, candy bars and that kind of stuff. So it was a big deal when you got into high school. You could walk to the store and get something. So been coming in this building, all of my young life, and it closed down in 2002 as a grocery store, and the doors have been shut on the building since. And in 2012, early in 2012, February or March, I bought this building, and we converted it into a garage. Put the garage door in that you see behind me, and made it where I could bring a car in. It's 5,000 square feet, kind of in 2 buildings that are attached. I can store 23 cars in it. I don't have that many, but maybe someday I will. But it turned out really well because it's got a drain in the floor. It used to have a meat market in it, so there's a drain in the floor where they did their butcher activities, and could rinse things down and clean up. So I can pull a car in here and wash it, and we put a projection screen TV in and a pool table, and so when I'm in trouble at home, I have a place to go.
A lot of orange and black.
Yes, those are my favorite colors. Yeah.
What were Keys' colors? Was that your colors?
Keys' colors were blue and white. Actually, our rival, Boise City, I don't view them as a rival today, but that was the closest school, and so that was always the big rivalry when I was in school, was when you played Boise City, and their colors are orange and black. So, I've always liked the color orange, and of course then Oklahoma State just instilled more than that. It's been a long time since I bled, but I'm pretty sure it would be orange.
Got a closet with some orange in it.
Yeah. Yes.
And you've got some orange cars.
I do. Yeah, I have kid growing up in the 70s. If you're going to collect cars, there's 2 you have to have. Yeah, it's mandatory. It's like a prerequisite, and that's the General Lee from the Dukes of Hazzard. And so I have a 1970 Dodge Charger that's a recreation of the General Lee, and of course Smokey and the Bandit. You got to have a 77 or 78 model Trans Am, and that's kind of my favorite iconic car. And I actually have 4 of the Trans Ams. I have 3 78 models and 1 79 model.
And then the Corvettes.
And then the Corvettes, yeah. I got really the first sports car I bought was a Corvette. And kind of the way that I come into the Corvette was I was a fan of Jay Leno. And of course Jay Leno is a famous car collector. And I've read that he has 4,000 registered vehicles. And so he has an extensive car collection. And one night he was interviewing Dr. Phil on late night TV, and I was watching. Well, Dr. Phil had bought a Ferrari, and he was talking about how he was always in the shop, and the tires were expensive, and he was just going on and on about this 6-figure car. And Jay Leno said, "Well, you ought to buy a Z06 Corvette, and it'll outperform your Ferrari, and it costs a lot less money. And if you have any trouble with it, you just pull into your local Chevrolet dealer, and they can fix you right up." And I'm sitting here thinking, here's a guy that can afford any car in the world, anything he wanted, he has or could have, and he's driving a car that I maybe could afford. And so that's really what I'd always liked the Corvette, but I always thought it was, something that was just a kid's dream. And so shortly after that, I bought a Corvette. It was a 97. But at the time of the show, he was talking about the 2006 Z06, which was a new car at the time. The Corvette had come out with a new higher horsepower edition. But I bought an older one because that's what I could afford at the time. And I had that car about 4 or 5 years and sold it, and then went and bought a used car like what he was talking about the night that I watched him. So I have a 2006 Z06 that is pretty much the same car that Jay Leno was driving at that time. His was black, and I'm not a huge fan of black, so mine is blue. They didn't have orange ones. They do now, but they didn't then. So
add it to your list.
Yeah, add it to my list, yeah. So I did for a while have I had a Camaro that was white with inferno orange stripes and had inferno orange interior. So
you don't just purchase and keep, you trade?
Yeah, once in a while. Yeah. I actually traded that car for a Jeep, not the one I'm driving today, but I had a gray one and traded that Camaro for the gray Jeep. And then in December, back to the orange thing. Jeep generally builds green one year and then orange the next, so they kind of flip back and forth. And the oranges and the greens will change color. You know, one year they'll do that kind of gecko, real bright green. And one year they'll do like tank green. And when they do orange, it'll be like what I call atomic orange, almost like a Texas Longhorn color orange. And then one year it'll be more of like a Hemi orange or sunset pearl orange is what this one's called. And that's more of an OSU orange in my opinion. So 2015 was the year that they built the true orange Jeep, and I wanted one. And I started having some trouble with my gray one and had it in the shop 2 or 3 times. And they would think they had it fixed, and I'd go get it and wouldn't even make it home, and it would do it again. And so one day I got sick of it, got on the computer and started looking for orange Jeeps, and where they were only 2015, this was in December, so I couldn't order one. Whatever was on the lot was all there was. The 16 models were out. Well, I found this one in Colorado Springs, and so I called Colorado Springs and traded them my gray one and drove up there, left it in their yard, and drove the orange one home. So,
Well, when you travel with the Corvettes or the Trans Ams or as a group club,
yeah.
does OSU come up?
Oh yeah, you know, I have OSU stickers. There's little plate deals around the name plates and stuff, and you know, you always get a Go Pokes or something like that. We travel a lot into New Mexico and Colorado on ski trips and things. You all the time run into fellow Oklahoma and fellow OSU fans up there. You'll be on ski slopes. And I always wear orange and black. I always have something on when I'm up there that represents the school, and so you know, people say Go Pokes or something of that sort. So it's a family you never leave. You know, you graduate, but you don't ever actually leave. You're always a member of that family. Or I feel like I'll always be a member of OSU.
Not a cowboy, but a plowboy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So do you go for homecoming? Do you go back for homecoming?
I do. We went to homecoming last year and did walk around and went to the game. So we do. We still attend. Still try to go down, take the kids down.
Indoctrinating them,
Yeah.
I think, for
Yeah.
3 future cowboys.
Yeah, hopefully so. Hopefully so. I was. Hopefully they won't convert. I was a convert. I don't tell anybody, but I was an OU fan when I was little. I even had an OU sticker on my wall. When I enrolled at Oklahoma State University, I had an OU sticker on the wall in my bedroom. Yeah, but when I come home for fall break, all that went away. It took them about 40 days or something, or maybe not even be that long, from the time you enroll until the time you start school till you're out for fall break. Yeah, when I come home for fall break, I was converted. So,
Why were you at OU? Because of football?
well,
I guess?
I have an uncle that's a big OU supporter, and so growing up, I was around that more. My mom's side of the family, several of them are OU fans. You know, I always give them a hard time because I always say, well, you know, OU has a lot of fans, but OSU has a lot of graduates. And so, you know, but they supported OU and went to the games. And my uncle would give us tickets and things when we were kids, and so I saw more of the sporting events on that side. Of course, more of it was televised, and out here the televised stuff was all you got, and it was Oklahoma. And I still cheer for OU as long as they're not playing OSU. You know, a lot of them are still kids that went to school in this area, and you know, they're still an integral part of the Oklahoma economy and Oklahoma education. They're just not quite as good as we are.
Well, do you know the words to the alma mater?
Oh my gosh. No. I don't. I can remember singing in the stands at the football games, but no, I don't think I could do it.
Okay.
You should have told me that I, needed to study up for this, I guess.
She would have made you sing it.
She would have made me sing. Oh, I'm glad I didn't know it. And so are you. You haven't heard me sing.
I don't know all of it either. I have to read it. I'm loyal and true's in there somewhere.
Yeah, I could probably get that far. But yeah.
We herald your fame, or name.
I wouldn't have got that far. Yeah.
All right. Do you have a favorite memory from those days, from your college days?
Oh, I have a lot of really good memories from those days, but yeah, I mean, just being on campus and going to Joe's on Wednesdays. They'd have a little Joe night where you could buy 50-cent little Joe hammers. That was a big deal when we was in college. And I can remember that one of the things that always stuck with me. There's a guy here in Boise City that's a good friend, and went to school with my dad. And anytime he was in Stillwater, those of us that was in that area, he would gather us up and take us to breakfast. And I always thought that was a big deal. Craig Sanders is his name, and he. So he'd call when he's coming down and say, "Hey, meet me for breakfast," and so that was always fun. Get to see somebody from back home, but have them in your environment, and college kid get breakfast bought for him. That's a big deal. And I really enjoyed my time I didn't think I would. My time in the dorms. I was dreading that part of it, the school part of it. I really thought I'd be all right there. I was a good student and made good grades in high school, and didn't feel like that I was jumping off into something that I couldn't handle. But living in a dorm, I wasn't too sure about that. And really that turned out to kind of be one of the highlights of it, because I met some of my lifelong friends were people that were either in the dorm or on the same floor. I can still remember a lot of the guys that were on the floor. Steve Vanderloon and was on my floor, and still become good friends with him. And of course Mark Conrad, he was on the floor below us. And so I really enjoyed my time in the dorms, even though I didn't think starting out that I would.
Well, that was the days when the communal bathroom was down the hall.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Had little shower stalls. You walk to the middle of I was at the very end. I was on a very end room. So I'd have been on the 8th floor, and I was on the southeast corner. I don't remember the room number, maybe 64 or 864 maybe. Anyway, it was about, I don't know, probably 30 or 40 feet to the bathroom down the hall, and the showers were little cubicles that you went in. So it was culture shock to a kid that had come from a little school and grew up with mom and dad, but I could do laundry, so I somehow made it.
Did it have a phone in the room, or was it
Oh
down the hall?
no, I didn't have a phone in the room. Let's see.
Or was it down,
No,
down
I
the
think
hall?
we had a phone in the. We had it wasn't a mezzanine. I think that was downstairs, but we had like a commons area on each floor, and it seems like the phone was in the commons area, I think.
What would you call home much?
I would. It wasn't so much that I was homesick, but I wanted to know what was going on at the farm, and I'm still that way. Dad and I try not to travel at the same time. Generally, either he's here or I'm here. At times that's not possible. Yesterday we were both both gone. He had a meeting in Garden City, and I had one in Oklahoma City, and so it happens. But we try not to be gone at the same time. But if he's gone, he calls me to see what's going on, and when I'm gone, I call him to see what's going on. And so it was more the connection to the farm, and that's what I really love. I love the farm, and I love taking care of the land, and all of my fondest memories of childhood were involved and instilled on that farm, good and bad.
Does it smell a certain smells?
It does, sure.
Things?
I mean, there's things like that trigger. Fresh plowed ground has a smell to it that's wonderful. Rain, even diesel. Even the smell of diesel, whether it's raw fuel like they're pumping into a tractor, or whether it's a tractor sitting there idle and burning it. Those are powerful things. And the farm went through something that from a standpoint of emotional was as hard on me emotionally as anything ever in my life. In 2014, we had a storm that come through, and it destroyed everything at my house. It leveled everything. So, I mean, there was outbuildings that had been there since the 30s and all the grain bins that we'd put up and that I'd climbed 1,000 times, putting grain in, and the round top that I grew up in front of working on tractors and watching Dad weld and all of those things. I mean, it just one day was gone. It just leveled it. And so the only thing left standing was my house, and the only thing I could find wrong with it was we was missing a piece of fascia off the underneath side about this far. But 50 feet from my house, there was a granary, an old wooden building that was put up, but they have rooms in them to hold grain, and so they're real well constructed. It moved, it didn't blow it down, but it scooted it off the foundation about 30 feet with a pickup inside of it. Scooted it and the pickup, moved it roughly 30 feet. And that was like 40, 50 feet from the edge of my house. And then straight, that would have been back to the north of my house, straight east of my house, maybe 100 feet, there was an old block, cinder block type building that was actually moved from Elkhart, Kansas, brick by brick in a wagon. And it was put up, it was an old milk hauler, and it was put up out there at the farm sometime in the early 30s, and it leveled it. And then next, just on from it, about maybe 100 yards or 150 yards, there was 3 grain bins with augers and all that stuff, cross augers and all the farm type storage that you see. And they were gone. I mean, they didn't even exist. They were half mile from where they were tied down, and the round top was the auger from the bin had blew over into it and just split it open like a pop can. So it was just ripped open and blowing in the wind. And there was a Morton building, like just a regular wood constructed farm building like you see it at farms. And it was completely gone, and totaled some tractors and some vehicles, and then I own a grain elevator 9 miles east of Keys, and that's where the farm headquarters is now. That storm went at such an angle that it caught it too, and so we had a 150,000 bushel bin on the ground out there, and a $200,000 leg we'd put up in 2012 laying on the ground. Now, the insurance claim on that storm was $1.3 million. And so it took 1.5 years to reconstruct all the things that were gone. Of course, we didn't build back exactly what was gone because it didn't make sense to. It made sense to put up a bigger bin out there where we had scales and where our grain handling facilities were, rather than putting bins back up at the farm. And we lost like 5 outbuildings at the farm. Well, it didn't make sense to build 5 small buildings. It made sense to build one big building out there. And so, it's still sometimes I top that hill where the farm's supposed to be, and it's all it is the house. And I did have the granary that was scooted off the foundation. It was going to cost as much to have it tore down as what it was to have it put back on the foundation. So we moved it back, and it wasn't economically smart to, but I had the round top fixed. I didn't think I could survive without it, and so. That was a really trying time.
Well, where were you when the storm was passing?
Well, Dad and I were out at Hopkins at the elevator 9 miles east of Keys, and that thing blew in. We were extremely dry, and it blew in like a dirt storm, just like you see in the pictures from the 1930s. It just rolled in, this dark black cloud, and when it hit, it hit like just bam. It wasn't like the wind gradually got up. The wind, I have a wind mesonet tower where energy company's doing wind studies. It's 2 miles from my house. The anemometer on top of it went to 166 miles an hour. And so they called it a downburst. It wasn't a tornado, it was a straight line wind. Everything was laying in the same direction, and it wasn't twisted up or anything. But Dad and I were together, and we were out there when it hit, and we just got under the awning of the building and stayed in the pickup and kind of rode it out. Well, it was the first day of harvest. It was June the 30th, 2014. We had harvested the wheat right in front of my house and had finished about 5:30 or 6 o'clock and moved the combines to here 2 miles south of Keys. But our vehicles and a tractor and grain cart and a few things were still up there. My mom had taken the Jeep and one of the hired men up to get some of the vehicles, and Dad and I had went to the elevator to finish dumping trucks so we could move to the next field. So after the thing hit, we got a hold of the guys at the combines, and they had rode it out in the combines and were okay, but it wasn't as bad here in Keys. But they said Mom and this other hired hand had never showed back up. So it rained, we got a big rain right behind it, like 2.5 inches of rain. Just dumped it. And when we left the elevator, I'm quite sure that the bin and the leg had already blown down, but there was so much dirt in the air we didn't notice it because it's about a 1/4 mile between where we were with the barn there and where the elevator's at. So we didn't even notice the stuff down until the next day when we went out and kind of began to assess things. So Dad and I come to town, and I had a Jeep too, and so I come to town in my Jeep, and Mom still hadn't showed up. We couldn't get a hold of anybody, so we didn't have any idea where she even was. We just knew she went north. So they were working on the road going to my house. It's a paved road, but they had it plowed up into the middle and were resurfacing. So we started north and couldn't get up there. So decided we'd go around a back way, and so we get to my house. And we'd already heard from a neighbor that the bins were gone, and that, because I had a neighbor that come down and went in our basement. He didn't have a basement, so when the thing hit, he come and got in our basement. And so I said, "Have you seen my mom, or is there any vehicles there?" And it's like, "Well, your dad's pickup's here, but it's got a bin laying on top of it." One of the bins had blown across the road and hooked on his pickup, kind of hooked under the front of it, and then it couldn't. And the other 2 bins didn't hit the pickup, and they were a 1/4 mile from it. But the one that hooked the pickup couldn't drag the pickup too, but it totaled that pickup. So Dad and I finally get to just east of my house, and the high lines are down across the road. So we didn't think we should cross them. So I said, "Well, what do you think what I did?" He's like, "I don't know." And we're looking for my mom, and we're 1.5, 2 hours into the deal now. Nobody's been able to find her or this other hired hand. So I was like, "Well, I'm going to jump the ditch, and see if we can get through here without crossing these power lines." So I hit the ditch. Well, when I did, the Jeeps, these new vehicles, all have traction control. So as soon as the tire spun, it took power away from the vehicle, and I slid back down in the ditch. And so Dad's like, "Oh, we're stuck." I was like, "No, we're not. We're going to get out." So I get everything, back where that traction control won't kick in, and get working my way back and forth, and finally get enough speed that I just flipped the steering wheel, and when I did, that Jeep just popped back up on the road facing the opposite direction. And Dad's eyes were about this big. And he goes, "Well, what are you going to do now, cowboy?" And I said, "Well, we're going to try it again without traction control. Hang on." And so the second time we made it. Made it through the ditch and up into this pasture and that runs along the edge of my house, and got to my house, and no signs of Mom. Dad's pickup was still there, but one of the hired hands' pickups was gone. So we knew they'd been there and got the vehicle. So we head towards town the way they would have come. And there was, we don't know whether it was the cattle windbreak or whether it was the power pole, but something snapped while she was driving down that road, and it hit that Jeep in the upper right-hand corner of the windshield. She hadn't been in a Jeep, no telling what it had done, but because the roll bar absorbed most of the impact, but it like crushed the front of the hood and the front of the cab on the passenger side, and it rolled. And so then the hired guy that was driving the other pickup, he couldn't see, and so he run into a pole and was stuck. But he could see her lights flashing back up the road, so he walked down there to where she was, but he couldn't get her out. The door was jammed and everything. So Dad and I get there, and she's okay, or at least she keeps saying she's okay. And so we got her out of the vehicle, got her pry bar, got the door open, got her out of the vehicle, and got to town, took her to the emergency room. And she, didn't think she was hurt bad, but she had some things messed up in her shoulder, and she's had some problems since that we know were related to that wreck. But it was really, none of us were. It could have been a lot worse. Luckily nobody lost their life, or nobody was hurt, really bad. But it's really hard even now, 2 years later, to top that hill and all your memories of what something used to look like be gone. So
And your dad calls you cowboy when you get in the fix like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I guess, well, I think he thought I was gonna get thrown. I think what the deal was. I think he wanted out, was what he really wanted, but it was raining. So.
So that's not a nickname for you, for him.
No, that's not a normal nickname.
Does he have one for you?
Not really.
No.
He's for the most part been good to me, but there's been a few times that I really, needed straightened out. I can't repeat what he said. But I had it coming. Back to that deal of maybe not being as careful as I should have been. And one harvest, it was like 3 or 4 days in a row, or within a week, all of this happened. We were harvesting grain north of the farm, and we were planting milo up there too. Well, it would come up this little shower. It didn't rain but just like a tenth or something, but I get the truck stuck getting out of there, slide off in the ditch, and the truck stuck. So they just picked me up and we go in. Well, the next morning, where it didn't rain much, he said, well, we'll be able to drive that truck out. Him and Mom were going to go get the truck, and he told me to go get the milo planter. So I go get the milo planter. Well, when I'm going by the truck, I hook the planter on the truck. Tear the hell out of the milo planter, tear the hell out of the truck. And he kind of let it slide, and so it was me that got the truck stuck. It was me that ran into it. There wasn't anybody else to blame. And then a few days later, I was pulling a welding trailer, and I got too close to the bin and hooked an air fan that sticks out from the bin, and jerked this air fan off the bin. And something else. There's 3 things that happened right in a row, but the last one was the air fan deal. And my mom happened to be there that morning. She happened to be out at the shop. We were getting things ready to go harvest, so she was out there going to bring a truck. And I'm pretty sure if she hadn't been there, he'd have killed me. I think she saved me. But no, he's always been great. But sometimes he probably shouldn't have been.
You have a great relationship.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. He was best man in both of my weddings.
Well, there you go.
So yeah, I have a really good relationship with my parents. I see them every day, except for if they're gone or I'm gone. But when we're here, we see each other every day.
And he probably was the same way with his parents?
He was, yeah. His dad and him farmed together. And our relationship's some different because my dad was the youngest in his family. He had 3 older sisters, and he was the youngest, and so my grandfather was quite a bit older than him. Well, I was the oldest, and so my dad and I aren't all that far apart in age, and so I've got to farm with my dad a lot longer than he did his. I think he graduated college in maybe 68, and in 75, my grandfather retired, and they were running cattle and farming at that time. So Dad then took over everything from there. So really, I'm sure through high school and stuff helped, but as far as farming together from the time he got out of college to the time Grandpa retired wasn't but 7 or 8 years. And I got out of college in '93. My dad's still very active in the farm, and I'm 45, so I've got to farm with him a long time. I'm not even sure I can do it without him.
But he understood the relationship, though, with you and 2 sisters and him and 3 sisters.
He did, yeah, he did. And I'm really close to my sisters. In fact, the one that lives in Yukon, I spent the night there last night after my meeting in Oklahoma City, and then drove in here today. Just what's been 2 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, attended a concert in Oklahoma City with my other sister. So I try to go see them when I can and have a good relationship with both.
And try to keep it equal.
Yeah. I try. There's not anything that I value more than the relationship I have with them. And so, things, you see families go through events in life, when parents pass away, and for whatever reason, family doesn't get along or doesn't agree with who got what, and none of that's important to me. And maybe that's because I've been fortunate, and in life I got to do what I want to do and can afford to do what I want to do. But I look at that when I see that happen to other people around us, and I think, is there anything in my life that I would trade, that I want bad enough that I wouldn't, keep my relationship with my sister over having whatever that was, and I don't have anything that I value more than that. So all of that becomes immaterial when you look at it that way.
Sounds like church may have been part of your life growing
you know,
up. Too.
yeah, they made me go. That sounded terrible. But I mean, yeah, for the most part, Sunday mornings was, you know, forcing Jarrod to get dressed and dragging him to church by the ear. But yeah, as I got older, they didn't make me go, and you know, I mean, God's still a part of my life, and but I'm not actively involved in the church. But I, you know, I think there's other ways to give back, and I think there's other, you know, other ways to have faith that you don't have to have that. That's my philosophy, I guess, right or wrong. So.
Well, you must have been doing something right, or the 2014 storm would
Right.
would have taken.
You could have been much worse. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Anything else you want to ask? Anything else you want to say?
Well,
Besides the alma mater?
no, yeah, well, I can't say that. You know, I guess if anybody sees this or reads this that's considering becoming part of the OSU family, it really isn't just a university. It's a family. It's the closest thing to family that I've ever had, other than my actual family. You immediately have a connection with anybody that's got a Pistol Pete or an orange and black hat on, or you automatically have a relationship with them if you've never seen them or known them before in your life, and you gain that from the relationship that you have with the university. So it's a great place.
That's a great way to end. So thank you for sharing with us today. It's been
Thanks
great.
for coming out. Appreciate you driving this far.
Not a problem.
Most people don't realize that road goes both ways. They think it's just 5 hours down there. They don't realize that 5 hours out here is the same thing.
It's a nice drive.
Yeah, it is.